I just wanted to address a couple of comments in my first impressions video of the Reverb G2. Now, there was some quite aggressive people in the comments and some rude people as well, a bit unnecessarily so, but you know, this is the internet and the world's full of nasty people, the internet's also full of nasty people. Everyone's got a keyboard, everyone's got a mouth, sometimes they like to run it. Now, I'm not one to get offended easily, but I thought I'd just answer a couple of questions. Now, the first and most important one is about this bug that people are suggesting there is in SteamVR when you're using the Reverb G2. What people are saying, and this isn't from HP, it's not from Steam, it's just from people like me and you that have got reverbs. It looks to me like someone has suggested on Reddit that the SteamVR 100% render resolution setting, which is 3164 by 3096 per eye, is too high, and it should be 2160 by 2160, which is the native resolution of the HP Reverb G2 per screen. Now, this isn't correct. The native resolution is correct, and the resolution that it says it's rendering at, 3164 by 3096, is correct. It's supposed to be doing that. When you render VR, I'm going to try and keep this really simple because I'm going to do a video a bit later explaining exactly how VR is rendered. But basically, what we need to know for this video is that rendering resolution for VR is not like rendering resolution on a normal monitor, like what's beside me here. If you've got a 4K monitor or a 1080p monitor, horizontal and vertical, that's your resolution. When it comes to VR, because we're looking through lenses with our eyes and the screens are behind the lenses distort the shape of the image on the panels. It isn't flat anymore. It isn't just a normal rectangle. It's actually pinch top and bottom and pinch left to right. And this is called pincushion distortion. Anyway, to counteract that, developers have to render the image, the VR image, in what's called a barrel shape. It's called barrel distortion because it literally looks like a barrel. So it's actually more sort of pronounced in the middle, like a round fat barrel, and slightly rounded at the edges, the opposite of the pin cushion distortion. And you'll see where I'm going with this. If the lenses make it pin cushion and you render it barrel, when you look through the pin cushion lenses at a barrel distorted image, they counteract one another and you get a nice flat image, which is what we want filling our field of view. We don't want it to look rounded, we don't want it to look squeezed in, it needs to be flat. Straight edges need to look straight within our virtual reality world. Now, the long and short of that is that for this to work, the barrel correction image has to be rendered higher than the native resolution of the panels, or panel if you've got a single panel, in our VR headsets. This is the same for every single VR headset out there in the mainstream. The Rift CV1, the Rift S, the Quest 2, the Reverb G2, the Valve Index, it all works in exactly the same way. Now, what I want to put up on the screen here is the resolution of each of those headsets I just listed, by the Valve Index, because I don't have one, and then the resolution in which SteamVR renders them at 100%. And you're going to notice a very obvious pattern as we go down the list here. So I'm going to put them up. First one is our Rift CV1. Per eye resolution is 1080 by 1200. 100% in SteamVR, 1328 by 1548. Oh, noticeably higher, Carl. Rift S, native per eye, 1280 by 1440. 100% in SteamVR, 1648 by 1776. Noticeably higher again. What's going on here? Quest 2, native per eye, 1832 by 1920, 100% in SteamVR, 2704 by 2736. Any of you with a little bit of common sense can start to see a pattern here now, and how this relates back to what I said a minute ago about using barrel correction. You are required to render at a high resolution so that once undistorted, unwarped, we get a nice crisp image that is as close to our native panels as possible. So when you get your Reverb G2, which is 2160 by 2160 native, in SteamVR at 100%, Yes, it shows 3164 by 3096. All these figures are approximately 40 to 50% higher than the native resolution of those respective headsets, and this is how it is supposed to be. It isn't a bug, as a lot of you seem to want to tell me quite aggressively in the comments on my last video. It's exactly how it's supposed to be. It's exactly how it's always been, even since the early days of the DK1 and the DK2. You know, the Rift CV1, the S, the Quest, now the Reverb G2. You see they all go up in higher native resolution. They all go up in higher render resolution by about the same percentage. And this is how it's supposed to be. If you take your SteamVR slider, let's say you got the G2, and you move the slider down until you're near 2160 by 2160 as closely as you can, and did no one not think it's funny that you can't actually get on 2160 by 2160? It's because you're not supposed to. If you move that slider down, you are undersampling. You are reducing the render resolution below what will display as your native resolution. It will render it at the native resolution or close to it because the slider doesn't quite go bang on. But then once the barrel correction is applied, the image will actually be displayed smaller, and the image will look less clear and less sharp. This is why it has to be for a near to one-to-one native versus render image, rendered at 3164 by 3096 for the Reverb G2. Now, there's more details about this I'm going to go into in a different video, but I wanted to keep this one simple so that people could just clearly see there isn't a problem with SteamVR. You're supposed to render it 40 to 50% higher, so that once it's displayed, it looks as close to the native resolution as you can. And the reason I'm saying as close to the native resolution as you can is because the way the image is rendered in this barrel shape, it's curved. Once that image is then flattened with the lenses applying the pincushion distortion and balancing out the barrel distortion that it's rendered at, you actually get greater pixel density in the middle than you do at the edges. So the middle of the display, where we're looking, is going to be close to 1-to-1 pixel per render display ratio. But actually, as you get further towards the edges, that pixel ratio drops a little bit. But that isn't too important because that's not where you look with your eyes for the most part. So hopefully that makes sense to people. The long and short of it is, it's supposed to render at high to accommodate the fact that we're looking through lenses. The resolution in SteamVR at 100% is the correct resolution to accommodate this. Now, the other thing people were saying to me was, oh, you should have known it's not going to run very well at that resolution, Cole. You know, how did you not already know this? I did already know this. I have a Quest 2, which also runs at a very similar resolution to the G2. Of course, I already know it's going to run like a bag of crap with everything, you know, maxed out in game and at the native resolution. You know, we all know that. The reason I mentioned in my first impressions video that it runs like crap is because it's a first impressions video. That's the whole point. People need to know that if you just plug it in and leave everything at default, 100% on the render resolution in Steam, and what would be your normal game settings if you just come from a previous generation headset, that it's going to run like poo, and that you're going to need to then either dial back the resolution, perhaps in Steam, or you're going to have to dial back the settings in the game, or you're going to have to go into Windows itself and you can adjust down to half resolution there as well. Now again, everyone in the comments saying drop the render resolution in Steam down to 50%, 60%, 75%, you're absolutely right. That will give you a much more playable experience, but you will not be running native resolution. And this is not a bug, it's how it's supposed to be. The Quest 2 is exactly the same. If anyone tries to run the Quest 2 at the native resolution, we have exactly the same problem. You know, I've got a 2080 Ti 3800X, and it's just not enough power there to do it. Maybe if I had a 3080, which is twice as fast as my 2080, that might be enough to run at native res and with the settings up. I won't know because I don't have one. Maybe some of you guys have actually got one. If anyone out there has a Quest 2 or a G2 and you've got a 3080, could you let me know in the comments whether you're able to run at the native resolution, and if you are, what settings you have to run in game. And if you've got something like Half-Life Alyx, that would be a good reference point, or Zero Caliber, or or Asgard's Wrath. These are the more visually intense ones. And of course the sim racing titles as well, but the sim racing titles are always hard to run in VR. But yeah, if anyone has, I'd be interested to know, because at some point I want to get a new card so that I can turn these things up. But yeah, there we go. Hopefully that was clear. Hopefully that shows you that SteamVR at 100% showing 3164 by 3096 isn't a bug. It's how it's supposed to be. It's just really, really hard, you know, to run it at that resolution, just like the Quest 2 is. To put this all in perspective, the G2 at its native resolution is 2.5 times more pixels than a 4K monitor. Now, if you're PC gamers, which most of you are going to be, you know how hard it is to run a game in 4K with your settings up at even 60 Hertz. Imagine taking that 4K monitor, adding another 4K monitor, adding half of another 4K monitor, and then going from 60 Hertz to 90 Hertz and trying to run that on whatever graphics card you might have now. My 2080 will not run high-end games at 4K on ultra settings. It just won't do it, you know? So to expect it to then be able to do that, but with 2.5 times the resolution, obviously it's not going to happen. And this is why the frame rates are tank, and this is why you're all finding when you drop your SteamVR resolution down, lo and behold, you can run everything, you know. And to be honest, it doesn't look, if you run the G2 at half resolution, and the Quest 2 to be honest, it doesn't look that bad. You've still got the benefit of the panel itself. There's still very little screen door effect. It's still very sharp because the physical pixels are still the size they are. We're not changing those. So especially in the G2, you've got those amazing colours, amazing contrast ratio with the blacks to the whites. It does look really, really good. So running it at half resolution, if you've only got a 2080 like me, is a good solution, and it works well for the most part. Anyway, I'm getting sidetracked here. The point of the video was to say to people, a first impression video is a first impression video, not a I've spent 2 weeks tweaking things to get it to work video. And there isn't a bug, at least not that I can see. It doesn't look like a bug to me. It looks perfectly normal. It looks exactly like how all the other VR headsets work. You know, if Steam or HP come out and say, no, sorry, you know, actually there is a bug and it shouldn't be 3164 by 3096, then I'll put my hands up and of course I'm wrong. I like to learn as much as everybody. But you've only got to look at, you know, the list of resolutions here. I'll stick them up once more and see that as each headset resolution natively gets larger, as does the render resolution in Steam, you know, within that sort of 40 to 50% increase to allow for barrel correction. Anyway, enough of my waffleage. I'll do a video explaining barrel correction and pincushion distortion in more detail at some point, but for now, thank you for watching, and as always, take it easy.